Union of the Unknowns, a podcast dedicated to the exploration of modern culture, presents a weekly digest of current events that may have slipped past your radar. This is not your mama's news.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to Not Your Mama's News, presented by the Union of the Unknowns. I'm your host tonight, Keel Thor. With me are the Unknowns. She's a woman of high sophistication. Ashley, change, repeat.
Hello, how are we doing today?
Doing great. And she's a true Sheila from the land down under, Stella Q.
I still am. How you going?
I'm doing well. I'm glad you guys
Excellent.
are doing well as well. And anybody watching us live, hopefully you're doing
listening.
well. Or listening.
Later,
Doing
maybe.
well.
Yes, and I
welcome.
will go ahead and say that we do have for sure our buddy Jen is over on Rumble. So hello, Jen.
Hey,
Hello,
Jen.
Jen. We love ya.
All right. Well, you know what? I think everybody knows what Not Your Mom's News is about, bringing high quality news and information straight to you from that represents the clown world in which we live. Tonight, I want to pass the ball off to Ashley. I think she's got a very important announcement.
I do have an important announcement. So shout out to Stella. Actually, she's the one that helped me out with this story, and I did need it today. So I'm just going to go ahead and start off by saying this is from Becker News, and of course, it will be linked in the show notes. But New York Appeals Court reverses decision, rules the governor may decree arbitrary lockdowns. So apparently, after the lockdowns happened and it was challenged in court that the governor should not be able to mandate this type of thing, specifically quarantine designations to people, that it was challenged by the New York State Attorney General. And this happens to be the same woman who is going after Trump in New York City. So I definitely feel that there is an agenda from this person. But anyway, so she challenged it. That is Attorney General Letitia James. So she filed the appeal of that ruling, and it was overturned, not based on anything that was wrong with the case, but it was based on an old favorite that they, quote, did not have standing, which that may sound familiar to us here and some of our friends that are listening, because this was one of the things that they would use to brush off Garland Favorito in the voter GA situation. They would say that his case didn't have standing, even though, that seems, from someone who was not an attorney and not in the legal system, that seems like an arbitrary ruling. So now I do believe that it's going to be challenged again, but I'm going to read you a blip here. We are deeply disappointed in the appellate division's ruling in favor of the Hochul administration in the case of Borrego, Lawler, Tague, Uniting New York State versus Hochul. The court did not address the merits of the case, which were outlined by Judge Plotz in his original decision. Instead, they shamefully reversed and dismissed the case on a technicality, claiming that we, the petitioners, somehow lacked standing to bring the case in the first place. We strongly disagree with the ruling and are concerned about the widespread implications of this erroneous decision. They have not only paved the way for Hochul and our Department of Health to reissue this heinous rule, but they have set a precedent to preclude citizens from rightfully challenging government overreach in court, and they've effectively, unconstitutionally empowered the executive branch to overreach into policymaking, which is a decision that could open the door to further abuses of power. In light of Governor Hochul's other overreaches into the daily lives of New Yorkers, including her effort to ban gas stoves, her housing plan that would eliminate local zoning, and her excessive mask mandates on children, to name a few, our concerns are well warranted. This has been a David versus Goliath fight from the beginning on many levels, so it is not surprising that the state, with its limitless resources, has effectuated a win this round. We will never stop fighting for New Yorkers against government overreach, and so we will be appealing this calamitous decision to the Court of Appeals, our state's highest courts, which is a court of constitutional integrity, and we are confident justice for New Yorkers. I'm confident in justice for New Yorkers. So if this stands, though, this is very concerning. And some of the really concerning stuff about it was the fact that there are not limits on where you can be quarantined, whether that's in your home, whether that's a medical facility or some other facility, and there's no time limit either. So I do think this is concerning. I do hope that the next level up will find in the interest of the people, but I know that we know that it's 50-50. I would say that a lot of I do think there are some people that try to be constitutional, but I think it's getting less and less, and that those people are being co-opted, bought out, and the new regime basically is supporting the new regime. And definitely this Letitia Jackson lady is concerning because we've seen her go after Trump, not because Trump's not a criminal, because every president is a criminal, but because it's so one-sided. And of course, that's on the heels of the January 6th punishment for people that were, quote, supporting Trump.
Well, it's definitely a violation of the 8th Amendment, which, let me just read that out. In very short, excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel or unusual punishments inflicted. That's the short version. But yes, it's definitely a violation of personal rights, the Constitution, etc. But I think you nailed it when you said the new regime is supporting the new regime, because that is exactly what's happening. Yeah. The cabinets have been infiltrated.
Yes, they have. That's it. Yeah.
Is this the same court case they're overturning that ruled that the vaccine didn't prevent the spread, and so all of the people that quit because they were being forced to take the vaccine or being reinstated and all that stuff? Is that the same thing? Is that the same court case?
That's a very good question, but I would have to look into that, Keel, and see if it was the same court that ended up ruling. My guess would be that it's not the same people, and it sounds like there's still a couple of levels for them to go up. And I wouldn't be surprised if, the vaccine mandate and the back pay and all that stuff would continue to go up as well. And
so that was my concern when I saw that headline, was that, oh crap, all these people who were being, made whole again are suddenly going to lose all of their livelihood all over again,
Yes, I do think that that's possible. It's also especially concerning that it's right on the heels of this buzz that is starting to be generated out of a respiratory illness in China. I do find it concerning. We've had a lot of people in the Liberty community tell us that they're not done with health tyranny. We knew that ourselves, right? So I do find it concerning because we know that the health angle is important for them. And I do feel like as soon as you knew that Letitia, what did I say her last name was? I lost it. That she was involved, Letitia James, that we're dealing with a lot of corruption. Yeah. And here's the other thing is that as bad as Cuomo was as the governor of New York, and he was bad and he was part of the narrative, he helped kill old people, he was at least voted in as much as that's legitimate. This woman was not. She's an unelected official operating in the capacity of an elected official.
They don't elect attorneys general.
Talking about Kathy Hochul. She was the replacement for Andrew Cuomo.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yep. So it is a very concerning situation.
That did cross my mind, and I sort of didn't get to it. I wanted to look into that Attorneys General because he's the dude. She? I'm not sure. She, okay, is the person. I know I use that term very lightly. That overturned the constitutional Supreme Court decision. I mean, why? What was the reasoning for that? Can we just see the logic there, please?
Exactly. If you had in the best interest of people, why would you appeal that decision that ruled in favor of the people and said, yes, their rights were violated? Why would you do that?
Well, it's because they're keeping us safe and healthy. So, I mean, that's what it's all about, keeping the public safe.
Exactly.
Safe.
It's a popular move.
Safe whether you like it or not.
Yes.
Well, whether we like it or not, we're all in the minority here as far as all that stuff is concerned. So, if you're a politician and you're only concerned with keeping your job and not helping anybody, then you're gonna go with whatever the popular, at least in your party is concerned, the popular opinion. And you're gonna follow you're gonna toe the party line. So
yeah, it was just crazy. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Do you want to say something first, Ashley?
Oh, even if we are in the minority here, and I do agree with that, but it's just crazy that it would be okay. So your constituents are the ones that filed the lawsuit to begin with. So you literally are not listening to your constituents and taking their wishes into account. And by appealing this, what would be her reasoning except for she literally is the new regime? That's it. Go ahead, Sel.
Yeah, I can see it sort of, well, as we say, multifaceted is the name of the game. And it is a game. Alex Jones comes to mind in the sense of they are making an example out of certain things. They're showing their powers, flexing their muscles, etc. There's a lot of that going on. He's obviously the most famous one. It's a game of cat and mouse. It's a game of sort of tug and war, I suppose, because what they generally do is they bring in these really harsh things that they know nobody's really going to go for, and then they tend to sort of play with that a little bit, again, flex their muscles, and then things will be receded, and then they'll be brought in again, and then a slightly cooler version will come back, a gentler version will come in, and then everyone goes, oh, phew, that's better, and then let it in, so that's how they work.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think they're trying to do is evacuate New York so they can build it back better.
Yeah.
That's going on not just in New York. San Francisco also comes to mind. I don't know. It could probably list them for the next, till the cows come home.
Well, if they want to take a cue from, you're the neck of the woods, all they need to do is flood the city, and then they can just...
and the fires as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sure. And I do think there is there's a lot of validity to that. And I think there are some other evidence that would support it. For example, in New York City, if you defend yourself from an attack or a crime, then you're pretty much guaranteed that you're going to get punished, but not the people who are trying to murder you, stab you, rape you, rob you, randomly punch you. I mean, that precedent is being set by these people.
Yes.
So there's a lot of inversion happening here. And I certainly do think that getting people out who would object to this kind of stuff is part of the narrative, because they do want to build back better. And it's going to be very easy when you have a bunch of poor people who are natives and a whole bunch of migrants that you have bussed in, and it's going to be super easy to put them in a 15-minute city because they're already in a position of dependence. So here, you do your digital ID, you get your brain chip, you get your vaccine, and here you go. You got your money and you got your little pod to live in. So it's already, it would work seamlessly to establish that if you had the dissenters out of there. So maybe that is part of it. And then the other part is setting a highly dangerous precedent for this country starting putting people in quarantine camps, like what we saw in Australia. Now, I would also like to say that's not the first time that it's happened here. We know that Japanese people, Japanese Americans were put in internment camps back in World War II. So the game has been afoot for a very long time. It's just 2.0.
You know,
yeah, probably more like 5.6 about this stage.
if you want to talk about reparations, the Japanese that were thrown in internment camps and their families, that's a pretty legitimate claim, I would say.
Sure.
Hmm.
I think a lot of cases could be
there's-
made. I mean,
They're still
people,
alive.
yeah,
Within,
people
you know,
drafted into Vietnam, right? I mean, into made up wars. Yeah, but you're right.
Just
I had another thing. Sorry, Stella.
sorry.
The 15-minute city concept. I don't disagree with the concept, but I disagree with it when it's being constructed by government, the state. You know, I don't like it there. But if I were a billionaire entrepreneur guy, and if we were living in a free market like we all want to be in, I would park a bus by the border and tell all the migrant workers to come on, I got jobs for you, and drive them up to my 15-minute city that I built right next to my factory, and let them go, and then have at it.
Well, that's not necessarily an old concept. I mean, even
Oh, I
here
know.
in North Carolina, in the rural
The
places where
company towns.
yeah, they would have
Yeah.
textiles or you name
Coal
it.
mining.
Yeah, well, in North Carolina, it would be
Not in
more
North
likely to be
Carolina.
textiles, cotton, yarn, stuff like that. And they had mill houses set up around there for people to live. So if it's voluntary, that's one thing. But obviously, that isn't the
True.
situation that we're dealing with. And if you have transparency, that's one thing. But this is a real carrot and a stick. And I did want.
Is that just me?
I thought it was me. No, we've lost Ashley. She's frozen.
Yes. Okay, well, I'll just get my point out while she
Yeah, go ahead.
sorts that out. There's a few things there. I just want to rewind a little bit back to what she was talking about.
Some comments from.
Okay.
Keep going, Stella.
Did I drop off? Sorry.
Yeah, for about
You did.
30 seconds at least. Frozen. Shall I continue?
Yes, please go ahead.
We also had that example here in Australia of, for instance, the perpetrator getting off and the victim being criminalised. And one thing that comes to mind was it was a few years ago now, probably 6, 7, in Newcastle, north of Sydney, I think it was. There was a rapist, basically, standing at the foot of a little girl's bed, and the father came in, found him, and I think he stabbed him or something. But he basically, the guy ended up dying. And yeah, he was in big trouble. Like the victim who killed the perpetrator was in big trouble. Now, what would you do? It's a no-brainer, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the
Guy's gonna
public
die.
really got behind this fella, and to be honest, I really can't remember the outcome, whether he actually got any kind of conviction. It might have been maybe manslaughter or something. I'm really not sure, but it was pretty impressive the way the public got behind him. But it just sparked that memory. So yes, it's definitely happening here as well, and has been for quite some time.
I
the
think
thing
I
about
remember that story. Yeah.
yeah, you
I don't
might have
remember
heard
what
about it.
Yeah.
The thing about the 15-minute cities, I sort of do agree with you in some ways, Keels. Like the
Theory.
concept is
Yeah.
the concept is great for some people because some people like that kind of life. It's when it's forced on people and the surveillance. I mean, that's the biggest thing. That's why they're doing this. It's for the surveillance, whereas people think it's because they're trying to do the right thing for the people. I mean, if that suits you, knock yourself out. Go and live in a 15-minute city. Go and live in a freaking 5-minute city. I don't care. But personally, I don't want to be rubbing shoulders with anyone. I like my personal space. I like my hills and my acres and what have you. Don't have it currently, but I will one day.
Yep.
So there's that. But the other thing is about all this, and I haven't checked it out myself. I did put a link in the private chat if you want to bring it up. We will get copyright, so you have to turn the audio down. But I keep thinking of a movie called Escape from New York. Have any of you seen that? It's
Hell
a
yes.
1981 film. Kurt Russell,
Snake
John
Plissken.
Carpenter.
Yeah.
What's that?
Snake Plissken. That was his character's name.
That was, yeah, that's right. Yeah, gosh, it's been, yeah, I haven't watched it probably since the 80s. So I don't know whether that's got any relevance, but it just keeps coming into my mind. I kept wanting to check it out. So I don't know if we can just put that in the show notes if people want to have a look. But do you remember if it was relevant? Sort of, I mean, from what I'm seeing there, there's a bunch of police, you know, trying to.
It was a dystopian future New York, and he was sent in under certain circumstances. And I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but it was kind of a dark action movie type thing. But it was really great. It was a classic John Carpenter type 80s action type thing.
Well,
you can't go wrong
when
Kurt Russell and John Carpenter get together.
Yeah, if I was a New Yorker, I'd definitely be pulling a Kurt Russell right now and escaping to New York if possible.
Right.
But that's what they want, so give them what they want and get the hell out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
That's a good movie. The follow-up movie, Escape from L.A., was not as good.
Okay.
And I don't even know if that was John Carpenter. Was it?
Was there an Escape from SF by any chance after that? Trilogy,
I don't think so. I don't know if there was an Escape movie after that.
It'll probably be out next week now that I've mentioned it.
Yeah.
AI straight onto it.
Well, Ashley, anything else to add from that story? I know you dipped out there for a minute.
Yeah, my apologies. Also, I think I somehow accidentally set our YouTube video to private. So I don't know how to fix that.
Changed midstream or not?
I don't think so. That's what I was looking at. But anyway, so we're gonna roll with that. But we are live on available publicly on Rumble right now, Twitch. So I just wanted to read a couple of comments from the guys. So Sir Tim had said, as we started talking, when I was bringing up the presidents, he said, if the president does it, it's not illegal. Richard Nixon. And Jen said, I have a question. Do we embrace illiberalism or do we stick to our principles? Tim said, Stella, are you saying the call is coming from inside of the house? Jen said, many such cases of unelected officials. Yes. And Sir Tim said, Cuomo never did make use of those hospital ships despite the emergency rooms being overwhelmed, but not too overwhelmed for TikTok rehearsals. I would agree with that. There's a little bit more chiming in here, but I was a little bit behind. So I just wanted to say that Jen said, yes. Welfareism is part of it. Totally agree. Usher in the digital ID using the migrant crisis. And then Sir Tim said, the company town and the company store. And then Jen said, fuck yeah, John Carpenter. He liked Escape from LA. And Sir Tim said, if I were a New Yorker, I'd be in upstate New York. New York City can get bent. I will agree with that. I actually lived in upstate New York and I really liked it there. And I thought a lot of people were kind of on the same page. Now, I will say that this was before I realized that the globalists were trying to kill us all. And it was before COVID lockdowns and vaccines and stuff like that. So it was in a different place.
Were you living there in the Sex and the City days? I can just see you in a little group having your cocktails.
No, I was post Sex in the City. I was not quite there, but
menopause in the city.
Yeah. I actually did really like once I got settled, I loved upstate New York. And there's this grocery store chain called Wegmans, and it was the absolute best. Like it was a huge grocery store. They had hot bars, they had sushi. You could just go in, grab it. Delicious every time. It was amazing. I was very sad to leave upstate, but like I said, that was before COVID. So I think I would have been having a really hard time up there at that time.
So can you explain to me if all this sort of is going on in New York City, right? I'm being geographically retarded like I am.
Right.
Upstate New York is that's a very much an outskirt of the city, I gather.
Anywhere else in New York State is called upstate New York, I guess.
Pretty much.
Okay, so this is all pretty much just concentrated in New York City, is it? It wouldn't sort of affect the outskirts so much?
It will because it's from a governor level, so it will even though most of the rest of the state sends their tax dollars to support New York City, and New York City is, as you know, like super progressive, super UN, all of that stuff, the rest of the state will be affected by this.
Oh,
And actually,
yes.
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I have no doubt that, yes, it's setting a precedent, so then it'll trickle down. Of course, I get that. But I was just wondering, currently these things are very much just concentrated in New York City at the moment.
Well, the migrant crisis is, but as far as the original story with the governor's ruling, that was statewide to begin with. Yeah.
Thank you. Right.
Yeah. So but the migrant crisis for sure is going to be affecting the city, but obviously because of the tax dollar situation, the rest of New York State. And a lot of people do feel like they're kind of a prisoner there.
I think that's pretty true in most states, that every state has a big metropolitan area, more or less.
Yep.
I don't know if you could say that about the Dakotas or something, but Atlanta in Georgia affects all of Georgia, and it's turning blue, if not already. And you say that about Oregon out there, and you've got Portland, and that's very blue, but the rest of it is red. And same with California, really. Just the major cities along the coast are blue, but
So that's what I see when I see a map of red, blue, and then there's purple. That's what you're talking about, like say red on the outside and blue on the inside, that type of thing.
Well, the purple states usually indicate that it's kind of in transition. It's going from one way to the other.
Even the states are transing. Wow.
Yeah. But if you look at any presidential election map where they color each county in the states, you can very easily see it's almost entirely red. You just have these blue dots where the major cities are: Austin, LA, New York, Chicago.
Places that sort of matter more, really, in one sense, don't they?
They have
like a little dot can have more power than a big red area.
Yes. Yeah. And even though the little dot is getting funded from the big red area.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So it's in places,
two wings of the same purple bird.
Yeah, it really is. And so the thing is that a lot of states back in the good old days it was red. Texas was red, North Carolina was red, Georgia was red.
Very red.
But as people are getting run out of their communist states, it's becoming more and more purple. And as the cities are getting bigger, more and more purple. So it's a true Yuri Bezmenov style infiltration, really,
totally.
because it's been taking place over a matter of decades. Tim said that replacement migration courtesy of the United Nations. Agreed. And Austin, Texas, the blueberry in the tomato soup. Yeah.
Yes, it's a great dilution, isn't it? I mean, that's why a lot of those, that's one of the facets of why a lot of those immigrants were brought in, is to dilute the whites, and they're all, warfaring age, a lot of them males.
They're going to be ready to sign up whenever they're handing out their government issued AR-15s. And these people are going to be so disconnected from the populace, and they might already be criminals. We don't know. We've heard that some of them literally were let out of jails. So if they were criminals in their other country, not that I subscribe to everything that the justice system says, I'm just saying that it's possible that you have a type that is being specifically brought in here. Not only are they military-aged fighting men disconnected from the populace in the country, but if they truly were prisoners and convicted of crimes, then that would indicate less of a hesitancy to truly be a jackboot on the throat of the American populace.
That's just happened here. They've let a bunch of criminals out, rapists and all that, and not really there's something about they're not really monitoring them properly and all this sort of thing.
That
sounds the playbook, the old playbook.
It is the playbook. It's the lockstep for sure, because that was happening. That started happening around here during COVID times as well, that they were reducing sentences of some, but it wasn't necessarily in a way that would make sense. Like, oh, you got the 3-strike rule for weed, we're letting you out. It wasn't like that,
Right.
So Sir Tim said, I remember after Trump was elected, Hillary started wearing purple. Oh, that's a whole discussion in and of itself, because the giant Stacey Abrams wears purple all the time, which is the color of royalty, the color of trust. Jen said, yes, of course. She's trying to play royal chesed queen. And Jen says that Trump sticks to his orange spheres. Sir Tim said, oh, go ahead, Stel.
I was just going to say, isn't it interesting that Prince, who was called, his band was the Purple Revolution? Because
New Power.
If you're thinking about Ollie Demigard and his kind of way of thinking about things, and I mean, we've talked about the color revolutions. It seems to be
I thought
purple
Prince.
currently.
It was Prince and the New Power generation. Oh, that was Generation, not Revolution.
Prince
Sorry.
and the Purple Revolution
Purple,
was
that's right,
definitely
yeah.
his band in the earlier days.
Yeah. So they said that Sir Tim said true, Jen, and red and purple or red and blue make purple. And he said exactly dialectical synthesis signaling the uniparty. Yes, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's a lot, and there is something to the colors. Absolutely. And I think just the establishment of red versus blue to begin with is significant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And has the Democratic Party has been around since the origins of our country. Have they always held on to blue, I wonder? Because the Republicans didn't officially enter the scene until Abraham Lincoln was president. And
good question.
Have they always been red since then? The grand old party? I don't know.
Good question. I wouldn't be surprised if we were to find out that like it wasn't until Brzezinski's time, whenever they were really hacking propaganda, that the
Right.
rise of the colors of the party became as well known and as consistently associated with them. But you never know.
And the elephant and the donkey, that symbolism. I don't know where that comes from exactly, but
so Jen said red pillar of severity, blue pillar of mercy. Now that tracks with progressives, but it's actually a pillar of severe mercy, weaponized mercy. And Tim said Ole was just on tinfoil hat. Interesting conversation.
It always is with him. You know, don't know whether he's cool or not, but he's certainly got some interesting stuff. I love all the symbology that he brings to the forefront, because it really helps you look into things like, well, it's harder now with the whole AI crap. They've really muddied the swamp with AI, but you can't really believe anything you see anymore, unfortunately, unless you look really hard and you know what to look for. But prior to that flooding, even though it's been around longer, I know. Anyway, Ollie would point out things like the overturned baby prams or push bikes on their side, shoes, sneakers, all sorts of things that are consistent when you start realizing that they're there. Purple was another one. And it seems, that varies because it seems to change depending on what wave they are in.
Set dressing. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, and I think Jen is really good at that too. I mean, if you give him an image to analyze, he will analyze it and at least point out to you, well, I don't know necessarily, but if this was taken by them, certainly this is what I see. This is the colors that they're using. This is the layout, even the aesthetic of the picture. And I think that it is very fascinating, and there's a lot to look into from what they put out there.
Looking forward to getting together with Jen. Actually, we've talked about doing a bit of a thing on that, so we should do it.
Definitely.
Do an image analysis.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
All right. Speaking of analysis is plural, correct? All right. Anyway, I've got a story. And yes, analysis. If you're familiar with controversial archaeological historic sites, there's one over in Indonesia called Gunung Padang that I've read about previously.
Sounds like a drum roll with a cymbal on the end.
The article I read was very dismissive of the claims of people, proponents of the site's historicity. The claim is that it's a big mound, basically, that's some people say is man-made, but the broader archaeological community kind of says, nah, that's nothing. But there was a new study that came out, and they've analyzed using various dating methods. I know those can be kind of criticized here and there, but their analysis says that this very large pyramid is could be as old as 27,000 years old, which way predates any other megalithic structure that it's currently we know about anyway. But the study has actually caught the attention of some more mainstream archaeologists, and so now they're going to start doing some investigation, and it looks kind of interesting. The core of the pyramid is a very ancient volcanic structure. It's just volcanic stone, but they did a bunch of ground penetrating radar and those sort
LiDAR.
of scans, LiDAR, and they found that the volcanic structure is very meticulously carved, so it doesn't look like a natural phenomenon, and there are layers of dirt that appear to be placed as if they were large bricks in place all around this thing, and then layers and layers of stuff. So it looks like this is a very, very old man-made structure, and they've, like I said, their dating methods show tens of thousands of years old. So I'm very interested in this, and I'm going to try to keep an eye on it as much as I can, I suppose. But
Oh yeah, please do. I mean, there are many, many pyramids around the world, and I can just picture Jin is at his keyboard right now, punch, punch, punch,
Yeah.
punch, punch, with a whole bunch of information. So welcome that information. But there's many of them around the world, and I think there's so many archaeological bits of info coming out now. It's almost like we can't really keep it. I think the internet sort of they've shot themselves in the foot a little bit with the internet, in the sense that they can't really keep control of some of this stuff coming out. So now they've just got to let it come out, muddy the waters and whatever. But really interesting. It's definitely not natural stuff.
It's a really great example of something I've noticed in past couple of years, where I like to call myself a skeptic, but just about anything. But there's the skepticism community out there, and the modern skepticism community, and I've been reading some of their articles and things, and boy, is it just so, I don't know, short-sighted or whatever. They take a story somebody puts out there, and they just slap it down because there's no peer-reviewed scientific study that proves what this person is saying, regardless of whatever other situational or anecdotal or whatever other evidence that exists, or in the archaeological regard.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a theory out there for something that's based on an outlying data point that doesn't match the current line of data, and you say, well, this is out of place, what if blah 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 blah, the community smacks it down and says, nope, that does not have anything to do with our current theory. It doesn't fall in line with these lines, so it cannot be true. And they say it with such conviction, and that's what bothers me the most. I don't mind if you come out with some off the wall theory, and then you could say, well, it's really doesn't make sense because there's not a lot of evidence for that. I don't have a problem with somebody saying that, but they just, boy, do they come after it. And
like people like Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's been placed
like
there purely to do that.
Yeah, that guy. He's one of them. And and this story really caught my eye because I read about it in an archaeology magazine that was just smacking it down, saying all of these theories about it are ridiculous. There's no chance that this could be older than whatever, and it's just a pile of stones and blah blah blah, or people lived here but it wasn't that long ago because we don't have any evidence that's otherwise that supports there was communities of people in Indonesia at the time or something like that. And they just throw it out the window. And look who's here. We got the man, Toons.
Yeah.
I'm working on my mic. Hold on.
Yeah.
A little
Hey,
bit premature.
while you're doing that, Tunes, I'm gonna read some comments. Welcome. We're happy to have you here, buddy. So I
Yeah.
was gonna say that Sir Tim said okay, my pronunciation is probably not gonna be great here, but I'm gonna do my best, okay? He said they still can't figure out non-medal and think Yonoguni is a natural formation.
Mhm.
Okay, we've got
I bet that information came from the Smithsonian Institute.
we have Ando is also joining the party. What is up, Ando?
Hey,
And
Ando.
Jen said the most interesting in Indonesia is forgive me.
Candy Suka?
No, it's
No?
Borobudur Star Temple to receive lightning.
Mm.
Oh, yeah.
And
okay.
he said we have converted Keel. And
What?
then Sir Tim
Converted me from
said
what?
Jen's got that
Normanism.
9th degree black belt in esoterica. I'm in the presence of a master. Agreed. It's a lot of fun to hear Jen's takes on this stuff as well as Ando and Sir Tim. So a lot of fun. All right, Tunes is here as well, and we welcome Tunes.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all.
Tunes in the-
Hey.
Tunes
Now
in
we're
the
in.
house.
Hey.
How's the free state of New Hampshire doing?
It's cold.
Good.
Tis the season.
Is it
cold
still
Yeah.
right
free?
here.
Yeah, no snow yet, but it's getting real cold.
All right. Well, anyway, that's about the end of my story. I just it's another example that breaks the current thinking. There was one over in Turkey probably 10, 20 years ago that they found not Gobekli Tepe, but something like that. Maybe that is the name. It's one of those over there. But they only excavated a very small portion of it, but they found these huge megalithic structures, and it was dated to 13 to 15,000 years old, which is older than the oldest one they had found up to that time. And this one's even older than that. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But I find all this stuff fascinating. I love archaeology, as our old time listeners probably know. But
I'm with you, Keels.
yeah.
Yeah, the thing is how do we actually know? Because if you have people at the Smithsonian or at a university that are the ones that are doing the excavating, that have access to the site, that are testing the soil, I trust them as much as I trust Anthony Fauci to do a PCR test on me.
These people that came up with this new study aren't from the Smithsonian or anything. They're local archaeologists doing their own studies, which is pretty much true everywhere. Most of the archaeology studies in the world aren't conducted by the Smithsonian. There's universities all over the place that send out teams that look at sites that have gained attention. Maybe they're trustworthy, maybe they're not, but
Well,
what
they're
they're
under-
reporting is always interesting.
They're under, I suppose, I don't know, contract is quite the right word, but they're under the understanding that, if there's anything significant found that, okay, thank you, we'll take over from here.
Yeah, we're going to steal this shit.
Sometime.
It's just like, I can't think of his name right now. Probably Jin knows who I mean, but the dude in Egypt that's very well known for being on site with, you might know, yeah.
Zahi Hawass, that guy, the
Similar.
director
It sounds
of
halloumi
antiquities
something.
over in Egypt.
Hummus.
Yeah, that guy's.
Yeah, he's definitely a government agent, that one for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But
Has been
that's the
for
sort of
a
thing that
long
goes on.
time.
He's just the most famous one.
Yeah.
Hey, Kills, can you give Tunes a Reader's Digest version of your story just to bring him in the loop on that?
Yeah, there's a historic site over in Indonesia that people have been claiming is ancient and important, and the greater archaeological community has dismissed all of those claims, but there's a new analysis of it that came out, and their results were that this giant pyramid is actually tens of thousands of years old, 27,000 years old, maybe. And so, and their methods look sound. And so it's actually garnered some attention from the mainstream archaeologists. So it's just an example of, don't dismiss things out of hand. Things can change. Science changes. That's what it's supposed to do. And you gain more evidence, and your story can become more complex, and you need to be open to that. Is my point.
I don't think Fauci has changed much at all, really. Isn't he the science?
He
is the
is
science.
My
in
bad.
fact the science. Yes, Stella.
Well,
I'm glad
it's-
that you knew that
Well,
you
he
know
said
that.
he was, so must be true.
Reliable.
I don't know if anybody touched on this, but the pictures of the old Indonesian pyramids remind me a lot of the old like Central America's, Northern South America pyramids.
Like
Just
the
the
Mayans.
architecture. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I don't know if it's just because the jungle's taking over, or if it's the actual architecture of it, but there's obviously a greater story than anybody's letting us touch on.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
sort of the step pyramid type
Yes.
situation. It's like the very
there's-
first pyramid I visited when I went to Egypt was the oldest one in a place called Memphis,
Right.
not Tennessee. I think it was Saqqara, perhaps.
Yeah, that was a step
and that was a
pyramid.
sort of that really, really old, like it was
Yeah.
very, wind worn and what have you. But yeah, that was sort of a step pyramidy type shape.
So
This one in Indonesia I'm talking about is also a step pyramid. So there's
And Cambodia. Oh, the stacks of them.
well, I wanted to ask, have y'all seen the meme that basically has the pyramid of what we see, and then it is underground, almost like an iceberg, that it's basically a huge like like a huge Washington monument, basically.
Huge
oh
Washington
yeah, I
monument.
think I've seen that.
Like
That was
it's
that was another thing I wanted to bring up too.
yeah.
That area of the world is it's covered in water. It's islands. It's I'm sure the oceans have overtaken a lot of those sites. I mean, there's a lot of sites off the coast of Florida, and like Doggerland is one of the things that I'm thinking of. How much has been buried, just taken over by the
Yes.
ocean
Mhm.
in that area of
Yeah.
the world.
Think
And then-
about. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, hold
Anderson.
on one sec, Keel, sorry. Tim said, every time I see those megalithic structures, I ask the same question. How the heck? I agree with that. And Jen said, I like Keel's archeo takes because it grounds the discussion in rationality. I agree with that. And Ando said he just drove through Memphis, Tennessee and saw a pyramid.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? I don't know. Tunes. You had something to add?
Well, Indonesia is a chain of islands, and the ocean levels change over time. Obviously, I'm thinking of Doggerland between Britain and like Denmark, and also there's the I forget what it's called. There's like an ancient road off the
Bimini.
coast of Florida, in the
It's called-
ocean, buried in the ocean. So
called
some
Bimini.
yeah. Okay, there you go. That's what I'm thinking of is how many of these sites are just taken over by nature
Yeah.
over time.
And if you think about it, it really isn't even necessarily time. If you think about that huge earthquake that happened in the South Pacific, I don't remember when, maybe 20 years ago or something, and it caused islands to be completely knocked off course down there. Like they were shifted in place and overcome with water, and huge what do you call them? The big tidal waves came flying across. So, that kind of shit over the course of millions of years, thousands of years, however old you think the earth is, happens.
Right. That's just 20 years, never mind thousands of
Yeah. So you never know what's buried under the ocean. What was the statistic? We've only explored something like 5% of the entire ocean, something like that.
Can we do that before we go to Mars?
That
I
would be
think
nice.
that's a lot cooler.
And probably less fake. I don't know.
Definitely. And as Cell said, space is fake and gay, so that's something to consider. Ando said that Bass Pro has a pyramid. Memphis is a shithole country.
Bass Pro is not a shithole country, though. Although Probably depends on which city you're going to one in.
Yeah.
Stella, let's move on to your story. You have
Just for the
something?
record, when I say space is fake and gay, I haven't got a clue. But it's sort of, partly joking. But the other side of it is they're lying about everything else, so it wouldn't surprise me. Just for the record.
Agreed. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm there too.
I like that take.
So, sort of to my region, it's a dog-eat-dog world, but the South Korea's First Lady, Kim Kyon-hee, explains, did I do that well? Explains dog meat ban plan to Queen Camilla. So she and her husband, who is the 13th President Yoon Suk-yeol, have just visited King Charles and Queen Camilla and discussed things like what you'd expect. But along those things as well is according to a presidential spokesman, is the plan to ban the consumption of dog meat. So this is black and white pilled, touting the move initiated by the administration of President Yoon Suk-yeol and the ruling party to ban dog meat sales by 2027. Ms. Kim described the proposed legal ban as a constructive step to enhance the awareness of animal rights, which that's a little bit of a line that sounds good but can have connotations, but we shall continue. Mr. Yoon's term ends in May 2027, by the way, so just as they get this in, their term ends, so not sure how valid this all is really, because it's a pretty big culture. Dog-eating culture still persists in Korea, Ms. Kim said, as she brought up the issue during her meeting with the Queen. Mr. Yoon and Miss Kim have 6 dogs and 5 cats, which I suppose you could call prepping, really. But so in South Korea, I believe the motivations were all good.
Yeah,
We'll
probably
continue.
so.
In South Korea, there were about 3,500 farms breeding dogs to sell them for slaughter. Now, just while we're on that subject, depends who you talk to, because there's another article that I went to that said there's about 1,150 dog breeding farms. Now, I mean, that's probably 1,150 way too many, but whether they've sort of lumped that in with slaughterhouses and distribution companies and restaurants as well, maybe so, which comes to about 3,000. So, yeah, it's a lot. It's a pretty big market. Before the end of 2023, the South Korean government aims to introduce a special bill, which I'd sort of like to know the actual definition of a special bill. What does that mean? Outside the Constitution? Does that mean rushed through? I'm not sure. That spells out criminal consequences for those that participate in the dog meat industry. These include dog farms, slaughterhouses, distribution centres and restaurants. If the proposed bill passes in the National Assembly, a 3-year grace period would be extended to 2026. So, yeah, bugger for those dogs.
Yeah.
We welcome King's efforts as we look forward to her further endeavours, said Queen Camilla, according to a statement from a spokesperson. The animal rights issue was among the topics on which Ms. Kim exchanged views with King Charles III and Queen Camilla, along with, all together now, climate change.
Oh, nice.
But also, which I find kind of concerning, literature. Okay, so that might be educational literature. I'm not really sure what they mean by literature, but that kind of sounds censorship-y to me, but whatever. Healthcare, of course, and well-being, because they love us, don't they? They care about us so much. So they're keeping us safe. That's all just blah, blah. Okay, so King Charles, during his discussion, spoke about his food waste reduction project, which saves extra food and circulates it through charities to tackle food poverty. Whereas, meanwhile, kind people in places like San Francisco, etc., are being arrested for feeding the homeless. But nevertheless... So it just goes on that, they all invite each other. Oh, Prince William has been invited to come to South Korea to experience its unique culture. I mean, let's hope they don't feed him dog, because he might get a taste for it. I mean, it's probably just been
About to say.
corgis up till now, isn't it? So, yes, that's sort of basically the gist of what's going on there. Sounds all pretty good. But it could be because we know that they hide behind children, disabled people, old people, animals, and what's the other one? there's another few. I'm sure there's plenty. So I don't know. But what I did notice, and it was only probably 5 minutes before we went on the show, and I sort of wish it had been sooner, since he's come back, or since they have returned from the UK, which was about 4 days ago, they're back in South Korea. Apparently there's been a spy agency shake-up in South Korea. And I think that's interesting timing after returning from a conference with the king and the queen. And all of a
Yes.
sudden, South Korean National Intelligence Service Director and 2 of his top deputies, all 3 whom are believed to have been fired. So there's a big shake-up of the echelon of the nation's spy agency. And that's all happening. So I'm sorry, I can't really bring you more about that because I didn't have time to go into it. But I thought that was very interesting, that timing.
That is very interesting.
So big
So-
shake-ups, I guess. I mean, South Korea wasn't that a deep fake that got voted in, if I remember correctly? That was the first presidential deep fake that was engaged. in South
AI
Korea.
or something weird like that. Yes.
It was a deep fake, yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
So Jen said that your Asian language pronunciation was very good.
Thank you, Jen.
And
Appreciate that.
Ando said Stella is stellar.
Sleepy Spice.
And then Jen said dog is actually really good for kidney yang deficiency, very warming food, makes you virile and warm in the winter.
Okay. Thank you, Jen, because if I could just say that I had something underlined here where it says eating dog meat has been an age-old practice on the Korean peninsula and is seen as a way to beat the summer heat. So it warms you up in winter and cools you down in summer. How does that figure, Jen? If you
It just said a
understand?
warming food makes you virile and warm in the winter.
I know, but it says here it's a way to beat the summer heat, so it must cool you down as well somehow. That's a dichotomy for me.
I think you read that wrong. I think it said they have to
Did I?
beat the doggies' meat, right?
No, they don't say that. Sir Tim said, well, of course the royals are cool with not eating dogs. They prefer
Don't they-
babies. So true.
That wasn't a sexual reference. Get your head out of the gutter.
No, it was a pun. I got it.
Yeah. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Pun run. Sir Tim said,
What
I have
now?
a friend that visited family in Korea and ate dog. He told me that if he didn't know what it was, it would have been some of the tastiest meat he's ever had. Jen said it's very oily. Tim like dark meat turkey. Ando said the dog days of summer. Yeah. So I know culturally that that it's a thing, right? And even one of my clients had spent all this money on a horse and the horse was having issues and he wasn't behaving. He wasn't really taking to his training, whatever. And she said, if I don't keep him or make sure that he goes to a good home, then he could very well be on a truck headed to Mexico in a horse meat factory and on somebody's plate in France because they eat horses there. We don't do that here. So cultural differences, but sure, I can't imagine eating a dog. But I think that Toons might have something to say about animals that are commonly eaten, but once you see a little bit of their personality, you can't really eat them anymore, right, Toons?
Well, at least for the pigs in my backyard,
Yeah, that's who I was talking
Okay.
about.
we'll give them a pass. The biggest takeaway for me for this story is that I'll call it cultural laws are way more important than I don't even know how to describe this. Written laws, I guess. Politicians' laws. The cultural law is going to win out. End of the day. I mean, I wouldn't eat my dogs. I wouldn't eat anybody's dogs. But like you said, a lot of places eat horse. It's just kind of what you're raised in.
Oh, of course,
Right.
of course.
Yep. And like the Indians, they, not everybody, I guess, but they have the whole sacred cow thing that we eat cows all the time here, but they don't.
And
Steak's
we don't
pretty
treat them
tasty.
very well. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The abattoirs here, in Australia, I guess probably the same over there. It's not a place that you would probably want to visit if you enjoy your beef, because I don't think they, go to too much effort to make their last breath comfortable. They certainly don't give them a cigarette or a last meal or anything, take them out to a movie. So, yeah, you wouldn't want to see that. So it's a little bit hypocritical in a way. But that said, unfortunately, I still have not been able to wipe those horrible images that a few years ago I did succumb myself to, just to make sure it was all actually happening, and it damn well was, of how, some of them, I'm not going to put everyone in the same boiling pot, but some of them, tend to not be very kind when they're doing their meat, often alive.
Right. Yeah, if you're not aware, and you're listening to us, you're not aware. According to the internet and very real videos, some people, I don't know how widespread the belief is, but they believe that torturing the poor animal before slaughtering it to release adrenaline and whatever into their bloodstream makes the meat
Adrenochrome.
more adrenochrome, makes it more tasty. So they tend to just do horrific things to these animals in order to achieve that flavor profile, I guess, and then they slaughter them. But my guess is the bigger factories don't take all that time to do all that. They probably just slaughter them and package them and ship them out, would be my guess. But I've never been to one, so I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's nowhere I will ever go, that's for sure.
Yeah,
I also
wouldn't
had
want-
a bit of
wouldn't want-
a little bit of a personal campaign some years ago. Gosh, it must be about 2006 or 7 now, maybe earlier. About the Chinese fur factories, because they were the narrative being pushed at the time, and of course I fell hook, line, and sinker, because they're not real choosy. I mean, they'll anything that moves basically. It's not just cats and dogs and things. It's all sorts of raccoon dogs and pangolins, and I don't know. It's just horrific. But at the same time, if you're in that culture and it's normal and you're a starving peasant, you can't really, judge from this cushy Western world, can we? So it's from our point of view, it's horrific. But
yeah,
it's
think
life,
about those. They have sort of a bushmeat, open air type food places. I don't know, in Africa, right along the jungles there. And they, you go out and you kill something, bring it back, and they cook it up on the stove and sell it to the people walking around in the market. And that's just how it is, They kill
gorilla.
whatever. Yeah, you kill gorilla, bring it back in, and chop up the meat and put it on the Barbie.
Or, buy yourself a nice gorilla hand ornament, or an elephant foot umbrella holder.
Stella, you're going to get Ando for this. I'll start. He said that everything is on the menu as shit gets realer. I bet everyone who lived under communism never expected to eat certain critters in their life. And Jen said, likely true. And then Ando said, stumpy steaks.
Ooh.
I'll deal with him later, Mr. Crumpet Muffin.
Yeah, if anybody doesn't know, Stumpy is Stella's pet lizard that she's getting to know, and she hand feeds at the Worm Cafe in the garden every day. So,
I'm
highly
afraid
rude.
Ando may even be correct. Stumpy is MIA. He has still not
Still?
returned. Still.
Oh. It's been a
Hope
while.
somebody comes back.
I do too.
He was a cool guy.
Can I try to tread lightly on this one? And I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but I think it's a Western thing to try to treat our meat well. I know every time I take an animal, I very much respect it and try to make it quick and painless as possible. And I think that's a very Western thing to do. I'll use that word. Regardless of what you're eating. And I think ad absurdum, like it's taken to like the veganism movement. And that's all short white chicks from LA. So that is like Western ad absurdum of how we treat our meat. I think Eastern ad absurdum is trying to get the adrenochrome out of the dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Go ahead, Stella.
I was just going to say, if you look at nature, the way a big cat kills its prey, it respects its prey. It kills it as quickly as possible. It's probably efficient for itself. It's probably not out of mercy, but they have figured out a way to quickly kill so that they can get on with their eating, you know. It's not like, I'm not going to say that things don't eat things alive. Of course they do. But they seem to, from what I've seen, you know, a big cat will go straight for the throat, hold its mouth on it, you know, basically until it knows it's dead, and then do its business sort of thing. But so there's that. There's no need to, I don't know. I mean, a cat will play with, you know, for fun with a mouse, for instance, but it won't always eat it. That's just a game. I think when they're eating things and looking for prey, they're going to pretty much do it quick. It just seems to be the way.
Yeah, there's
I could be wrong.
There's even no, you're right. There's animals that will, chimpanzees have been observed hunting for sport. They don't even eat the animal that they kill. But there are animals like the shrike is a bird, and it will decapitate. I may get the details wrong, but it will decapitate its prey and pin the decapitated head to like areas around in its territory as some kind of
like a warning.
As a warning to other animals and stuff. Yeah,
Ooh.
it's brutal.
Yeah.
So I did want to bring this. I mean, not to dwell on this topic, I really don't, but they do talk about the treatment of animals, like what Keel was mentioning, in the TV show House of Cards. Frank Underwood, played by, this is weird because I think that Kevin Spacey, I don't want to get sued, but I think he's up to some nefarious stuff. And
he's in the series?
Yeah, he's the president. Oh. Yeah.
He's not in it anymore. Did he come back?
No.
He got
they killed his character off, spoiler alert, after he was accused of whatever else he was accused of.
Yeah.
But one of the conversations that he has with one of the guys on the show is that they mistreat the pigs ahead of time because it supposedly makes it taste better. And I will also say that precedent is in the ether when it comes to the whole adrenochrome conversation, like Stella brought up. That's even in a Stephen King book, the sequel to The Shining. So that book is known as Dr. Sleep, and there's a group of people who have psychic abilities, and they have the ability to detect children and other people that have psychic abilities, and they can either bring them into the group or they torture them so that they can steal their life force. And the more scared and in pain the child is, the more powerful the life force that they steal is. So I think that I don't know. I don't think there's no reason that that's out there, because I think that sounds very predator class if you believe that they're satanic pedophiles.
Yeah, I mean,
do.
that's one angle. I was sort of bringing this more along the lines of the we'll just bring it back a little bit because it's getting really dark. We'll just bring it back to the political sort of thing that they kind of bringing in these things, perhaps looking kind of pretty good, because I think it's the 63% of the Korean people, or particularly the new generation, the younger people, are quite against the consumption of dog meat. It's more of an older cultural thing. It's more of the older people tend to do it. So things are changing anyway. So in that sense, they're maybe setting themselves up to be brought in again for the next. I don't know if they can serve 2 terms in a row in South Korea. I haven't looked into it that far. It seems to be a 5-year term because they were brought in. This current, what's his name? He was brought in last year, and his term goes to 2027. So President Yoon Suk Yeol was 2027. So they're obviously 5-year terms. I think they're just sort of building up their popularity. That's the word I'm looking for. So yeah. I don't know. In order to bring in other things, perhaps. I don't know.
That's what I was going to say. It sounds like in what you're bringing up as far as legislation goes, I think that it's always something else, right? So here's the other thing. If they start telling people what you can and cannot eat, or they start restricting it and restricting it and restricting it, and you kind of made this point, well, then I think that it sets a dangerous precedent, because if we're in the New World Order, and we are, and it's happening in other places, then that means who's to say that they're not going to say, well, you know.
Yep, no more dog. Here's your bugs. So
Exactly.
part of it is just the animal rights thing is also part of the green agenda, isn't it? I mean, I already read
Yep.
somewhere this morning, whether it's legit or not, that the elite have sort of said, oh, we want 80% of the world to be basically without you peasants. That's paraphrasing. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. Haven't looked into it, but it pretty much sounds like where it's heading, according to the Agenda 2030 and the whole green zones that we're not going to be allowed to
Yep.
go into under the guise of, Indigenous rights and all that kind of thing. It's all
I just want to
lockstep.
lean into cultural laws are way more important than legislative laws.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
why
know.
the UN hiding behind the Indigenous people, etc., with the UNDRIP.
So for us freaks, we gotta take over the cultural aspect rather than vote harder.
Yeah. We know voting is not going to, we know that voting doesn't work.
What? Sorry,
Wait.
Toons, did you just say we have to embrace the cultural aspect?
I would say try to change cultural law, cultural sentiment, I guess, rather than this elitist or populist rather. Vote harder. We can get our guy. Once dog meat is culturally taboo, dog meat goes away. Once 15-minute cities are culturally taboo, 15-minute cities go away.
Right.
Right, so we sort of basically need a lot more people to wake up.
We have to
That's what
keep
we're waiting for.
posting those memes. That's the key.
Memes are going to save the world.
Meme 'em to death.
I would say don't be afraid to speak your mind.
Oh, for sure. We definitely have to get out of this suppression thing because, I mean, if we're not going to comply, then we have to not comply with any of it. And that is, I mean, I've found myself sometimes going, oh, can you say that? And then afterwards going, what the hell? I shouldn't have done that. I should have just said it. So we have to just keep speaking out. But the problem is they've got the guns. They've got the force, May the force be not with them, but it is.
They got the microphone too.
Yeah.
But
that's the biggest thing.
Like I've always said, like, for example, our show is a white pill, we all came together, we all make this show and it happens. And this is the kind of thing that I think Toons is referring to. We need to change people's minds and wake people up and in the classic sense, not the current shitty sense, but
yeah, because don't forget who's got control of the internet. I mean, they can turn us off at the flick of a switch, basically, So if they open that shoebox,
we could always record on VHS tapes and mail them to each other.
Carrier pigeons, yeah.
Teach
parrots,
distribute like
parrots,
that.
The First Amendment.
Well, we'll keep doing it anyway until they shut us off. How about that? Hopefully, it'll make a difference. I don't know. So
that's the whole point.
On that high note, maybe let's wrap it up here because we're pretty past the 1 hour mark.
The high pill.
I know some of us need to skedaddle. So I want to thank Ashley and Stella for your stories and insights, and Toons for showing up because Toons is the cool one in the group.
Good to see you,
yeah, happy to have you, Toons.
Thanks for having me. Good to see y'all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good to see you too.
And I want to thank all the listeners and watchers and the future listeners who are going to hear this when it posts officially. And for those of us who don't already know how, Ashley, how can people get in touch with the Union of the Unknown?
Well, Keel, I'm glad you asked. They can find us over at our webpage, which is our Linktree page, and that is unionoftheunknowns.com, with all the myriad ways to get in touch with us, including how to get into our Discord server, and we would welcome them there. And you can also find me over on Twitter at Union Unknowns with the Union of the Unknowns Twitter page.
I'd just like to offer a special shout out to all the cats and dogs out there. Love your guts, just preferably not with vegetables.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to eat their guts anyway, Stella. You got to go for that haunch meat.
Yeah, it's pretty awful.
That's the sweet meat. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us. We are Union of the Unknowns, and we are out.
See ya.
Of course we are.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Not Your Mama's News has been a production of the Union of the Unknowns podcast. New episodes are available weekly on all your favorite podcasting networks.